5 hidden signs an elderly person is struggling, alone. You must reach out. The sun was just setting when Linda felt that nagging worry in the back of her mind. She had not heard from her elderly father in days, and while he insisted he was fine whenever she called, her intuition told her a different story. It was not just his wavering tone or the fact that he sounded breathless after only a few sentences. There was something else about the silence and those carefully chosen words that made her suspect he was struggling more than he let on. She considered how often older adults, especially those living alone, manage to hide their difficulties until the challenges become insurmountable. That thought weighed on her heart. After all, nobody wants to intrude on a parent's privacy. However, when independence starts to slip, these hidden signals can be the only clues that an older person truly needs help. Maybe you too have an aging loved one, a neighbor, or an old friend who insists everything is all right, yet you sense a disquiet beneath the surface. Today, we are going to walk through 5 hidden signs that an elderly person may be struggling alone. It is crucial for you to recognize these indicators before they grow into major crises. Throughout this journey, we will explore real-life examples, reference professional guidelines, and highlight ways you can step in to provide support without stripping away anyone's dignity. Sometimes the biggest warning does not come through direct communication, but through small changes you might notice during a casual visit. You could observe subtle disorganization in the house, or perhaps an unusual reluctance to engage in conversation that once flowed so freely. In Linda's case, she recalled a time when she visited her father, Harold, for dinner, and found the refrigerator sparsely stocked with half-eaten or expired items. Harold had always been meticulous about his shopping habits, preparing meals in advance and labeling containers to keep everything fresh. When Linda asked if he needed a trip to the grocery store, he brushed her off with a dismissive wave. A friend from church had apparently offered to help him shop, but Linda later discovered he was too proud to accept frequent rides, so he sometimes skipped essential errands altogether. This was not the father she remembered, the one who prided himself on keeping a tidy kitchen and a full pantry. That was the first subtle sign that something was amiss, a shift in daily routines that pointed toward difficulty managing the simplest tasks. According to the National Council on Aging, older adults who live alone are at higher risk of malnutrition and even depression because no one is consistently around to notice changes in their eating patterns. When a person starts cutting corners on something as basic as grocery shopping, it might indicate fatigue, reduced mobility, or deeper emotional struggles. The next time you visit an older individual, pay attention to the kitchen, the bathroom, the living room. If the environment feels slightly off, more cluttered, more disorganized, more neglected, this could be a hidden sign that daily tasks are becoming burdensome. Offering to help with grocery runs or suggesting a meal delivery service might open a constructive dialogue about what is truly going on. That leads us to a second hidden sign: the carefully concealed financial difficulties that can arise when an elderly person is having trouble keeping up with their obligations. Linda had always known Harold to be punctual about his bills and mindful of expenses. Yet, as she helped him sort through the mail one afternoon, she noticed unopened envelopes and letters from his insurance provider that had gone ignored for weeks. When she asked if he had paid the electric bill, he seemed confused, searching drawers and flipping through piles of paper in a way that hinted he was not quite sure. At first, he insisted he had the system under control. However, the confusion in his eyes told a different story. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau warns that a sudden lapse in meeting financial responsibilities can be a red flag for cognitive decline or for mounting stress that an individual does not feel comfortable discussing. Whether it is forgetting to pay utilities or losing track of bank statements, these are not merely bureaucratic slip-ups, but an alarm that perhaps the older adult cannot keep up as they once did. Some people might fear embarrassment about admitting they need help managing their accounts, especially if they have always taken pride in independence and budgeting acumen. They might withdraw or grow defensive when you try to inquire, so it helps to approach the matter gently. You can offer to set up automatic payments or to streamline their financial routine. Remind them that everyone needs a helping hand now and then. If you suspect deeper issues, consider whether they may have difficulty understanding new bills or healthcare charges, which can often be confusing. Suggest a consultation with a trusted financial advisor or even a local senior center that offers workshops on budgeting. The goal is not to pry, but to ensure that a momentary slip does not lead to anxiety, missed services, or long-term debt that worsens their situation. On a brisk Monday, Linda thought about an additional, more intangible sign that Harold might be grappling with: certain physical complaints that he downplayed whenever anyone brought them up. He had once mentioned lingering pain in his shoulder that made it hard for him to sleep, but then he brushed aside any suggestion of going to the doctor. She found it odd, because Harold used to be proactive about healthcare appointments. He never hesitated to see a professional when something bothered him. This shift made her wonder if he was quietly trying to handle more significant aches, perhaps because he worried about the costs or the possibility of receiving concerning news. Older adults often hide symptoms or play them down to avoid alarming family members. They fear becoming a burden, or they dread discovering a serious diagnosis that could uproot their autonomy. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention suggests that a reluctance to seek medical attention can be one of the subtler indicators that something is wrong. This might take the form of refusing rides to doctor's visits, skipping follow-up appointments, or avoiding phone calls from the clinic. In Harold's situation, Linda realized that he found it exhausting to drive himself to the doctor or schedule visits around limited public transportation. Furthermore, his pride would not allow him to ask for help. If a relative, neighbor, or close friend you know used to be prompt with checkups, but now dismisses any talk of seeing a physician, it might be a sign they are struggling alone with growing pains or unrecognized problems. Gently offer to accompany them, reassure them that the visit can offer peace of mind, and help them see that ignoring pains or mobility challenges can worsen problems that might have simpler solutions if caught early. Sometimes providing a bit of emotional reassurance can lift the invisible weight they have been carrying in silence. Another indicator often remains hidden in daily behaviors that mask deeper challenges: strategic avoidance of social contact or group gatherings. Harold had once been an enthusiastic member of his local reading club, seldom missing a session. He looked forward to discussing the month's novel, chatting about the author's style, and exchanging jokes with fellow retirees. Then the pattern quietly changed. Harold began skipping those meetings, claiming he was too busy or too tired. Linda noticed he had not invited friends over in quite a while either. He stopped attending Sunday brunch after church. He declined a neighbor's invitation for coffee, insisting he just wanted a quiet day to himself. While alone time is normal and can be refreshing, this kind of retreat sometimes signals that an older person feels emotionally or physically drained from social activity. The AARP points out that social isolation can be a powerful predictor of declining health, both mental and physical. Older adults who live alone have a heightened risk of feelings of loneliness, which can then spiral into depression or a loss of motivation to stay active. If you observe that a senior who was once engaged in community events is increasingly absent or uninterested, it might be time to delve deeper and see whether physical limitations, transportation struggles, hearing difficulties, or emotional worries are causing them to back away. An individual might withdraw because they do not want others to notice a new tremor in their hands, or maybe they worry they will not remember the conversation topics. Reaching out with patience and empathy, you can ask if they need a ride or a buddy for events, or if they have new concerns about participating. Encourage them by suggesting smaller, more intimate gatherings instead of large ones that might overwhelm them. The key is not to force them back into social life, but to let them know they are not alone, and that companionship is available on their own terms. A final hidden sign emerges in the form of subtle emotional or behavioral transformations that may be easy to miss until they gather momentum. Linda noticed her father making little remarks about feeling worthless or thinking he was no longer of use to anyone, a stark contrast to the confident man he once was. When she would stop by and mention an upcoming holiday, he would half-heartedly shrug, as if anticipating no joy from the occasion. He frequently shifted the topic back to regrets or lamented that the world was moving too fast for him to keep up. Some older adults experience changes in mental health as they navigate loss, whether that is the loss of a spouse, friends, or the physical health they once took for granted. Others struggle with the fear of being dependent or a burden to loved ones. The World Health Organization notes that depression in older adults is often underdiagnosed because many interpret sadness or apathy as a normal part of aging. However, it is not inevitable to feel constantly downcast, hopeless, or anxious simply because the years have advanced. If your loved one shows a noticeable decline in the way they speak about themselves or the future, pay attention. If they make bleak statements or appear to have lost interest in once treasured hobbies, this could be a sign they are internally wrestling with despair and do not know how to share it. Encouraging conversation, whether one-on-one or with a counselor, can make a remarkable difference. You can point out that many people benefit from professional advice, therapy, or community support groups. Remind them that emotional well-being is just as vital as physical health. If you see glimpses of gloom in their eyes or hear them talk about life as though it has little worth, it is time to step forward and offer gentle but earnest reassurance. Having identified 5 hidden signs that an elderly person might be struggling alone, it is worth remembering that each sign can manifest differently from one individual to another. Perhaps your neighbor no longer tends her once prized garden, the flowers left to wither even though she used to be meticulous with watering and pruning. Maybe a close friend has stopped showing up to gatherings, claiming she is too tired or out of sorts, even though she used to love socializing. Whatever the scenario, the essence of the matter is consistent. These subtle indicators point to an underlying struggle, one that pride, fear, or shame can keep masked until something dire emerges. So what can you do when you spot one or more of these signs? You reach out. You begin by having a thoughtful, private conversation in which you express genuine concern rather than judgment. Keep your tone gentle and your approach non-invasive. Let them know that needing assistance is not a weakness. It is a shared reality of life that sooner or later touches us all. You can start small, for instance, by saying you notice their fridge looks a bit empty and you happen to have some extra groceries you can share. If finances are the issue, you can quietly suggest a meeting with a local advisor or the possibility of designating a trusted contact with a bank in case any confusion arises. If the difficulty lies in physical pain or a reluctance to seek medical care, offer to drive them to their appointment or to schedule it for them. Physical limitations can become significant hurdles to older adults who still crave independence. Relieving them of those logistical headaches can boost their willingness to seek help. Should they be isolating themselves out of fear of embarrassment, you can propose smaller, more frequent visits or safe online gatherings if mobility is a limitation. If you sense a deeper emotional strain, you might encourage them to share fond memories, ask open-ended questions, or propose they join a seniors activity group where they can find empathetic peers. The essence is to ensure they know that someone cares, that they remain integral to the community around them. Linda decided she would no longer rely on telephone calls alone to check in on Harold. She made it a habit to stop by more often, under the pretense of bringing him fresh bread from the local bakery or a new book she thought he would enjoy. During these visits, she quietly observed any changes in Harold's behavior or environment. One day, she noticed he had trouble getting up from his recliner, an indication that his mobility was worsening. Another time, she discovered he had forgotten how to navigate a new cell phone plan he purchased. By stepping in early, Linda was able to catch the smaller issues before they became large obstacles. She arranged a home health assessment where a nurse visited and offered suggestions like installing grab bars in the bathroom and reorganizing the kitchen for easier access. These interventions reduced the risks and anxieties Harold quietly carried. There were still moments when he hesitated, especially when he worried about losing control over his life. If others learned just how much help he needed, yet Linda's calm, supportive presence reminded him he could maintain his dignity while receiving a bit of backup from those who loved him. Some might worry that stepping in without an explicit invitation is intrusive. This concern is valid since respecting boundaries is crucial. Yet consider that an older adult who is struggling alone might not always be ready to request assistance. Perhaps they fear being sent to a nursing home or losing the autonomy they hold dear. Maybe they have had negative past experiences with invasive relatives or caregivers. In such cases, a warm, consistent expression of support can break down those walls. You do not have to barge in demanding to fix everything. Rather, you can kindly inquire about one small aspect and let them guide the conversation. If you see reluctance, gently ask if they have thought about alternative solutions. Emphasize that you respect their choices, but you also want to make sure they remain healthy and safe. According to a study highlighted by the American Psychological Association, older adults who perceive themselves as having supportive social relationships generally fare better in both emotional and physical health outcomes. Simply put, knowing that help is available can alleviate a tremendous amount of stress, which, if left unchecked, can manifest as the hidden signs we have outlined. When we reflect on these signs as a collective, a pattern emerges. Behind each subtle clue lies an aging individual who likely believes they have to handle challenges on their own. Societal messaging about self-sufficiency often compounds this, encouraging seniors to remain tough or stoic, even when circumstances call for collaboration. That is why acknowledging these hidden signs is not just about interfering, it is about creating pathways to a better quality of life. You can think of your involvement as preventing a downward spiral that might lead to hospitalization, financial ruin, or debilitating isolation. The key is to balance empathy with proactive measures. Rather than wait for a phone call in which your loved one admits they can no longer cope, you step in early, shining a light on areas that might otherwise remain shrouded in denial. By now, you might be noticing parallels to someone you know, a grandparent, an aunt, a longtime family friend who used to be so vibrant but has slowly receded into a quieter existence. Maybe you have been uncertain how to approach them, worried that you might offend them or rob them of pride. Yet, the potential cost of staying silent is that real issues remain hidden until they escalate into emergencies. There is a sweet spot in which consistent, gentle support can avert crises, preserving well-being and independence for as long as possible. If, at any point, you feel unsure about how to proceed, remember that local organizations, community centers, and even national hotlines can offer guidance. Sometimes a simple phone call to an aging services office yields invaluable resources. Volunteer visit programs, meal deliveries, legal advice, or accessible transportation. By linking seniors with these community supports, you shift from being their lone pillar of help to connecting them with a broader safety net. Along this journey, it is also crucial to take care of your own emotional and mental well-being. Helping a loved one who may resist assistance or fail to see the importance of your concern can be draining. You might face guilt for potentially overstepping boundaries or fear that you are not doing enough. Sharing these feelings with friends who have gone through similar experiences can bring clarity. Even short counseling sessions for you can be beneficial, giving you the tools to stay balanced while supporting someone you love. Sometimes families discover that collectively addressing these concerns is more effective than a single individual bearing the entire weight. Relatives might rotate days to check in, set up group calls, or plan monthly gatherings, spreading out the responsibility so no single person feels overwhelmed. We have reached that juncture where the 5 hidden signs, disorganized living environments, unmanaged finances, neglected health complaints, abrupt social withdrawal, and noticeable emotional changes, coalesce into a larger picture of an elderly person struggling alone. In Harold's case, each of these clues appeared in quiet moments: in an unstocked fridge, a forgotten bill, an unspoken worry about chronic shoulder pain, canceled visits with friends, and a deeper sense of despondency over the speed of life passing him by. Without Linda's keen eye and caring persistence, Harold may have gone on suppressing these difficulties until a preventable crisis forced them all to face a harsher reality. Yet because Linda recognized and responded to the subtle indicators, she was able to extend help in a manner that respected her father's feelings. Over time, Harold grew more receptive, understanding that her concerns stemmed from love and not from any desire to curtail his freedoms. If you are finding parallels to your own situation, perhaps your next step involves sending a compassionate text, making a short drive for a face-to-face chat, or offering a simple solution that relieves a small burden. Encourage your loved one to open up in their own words, letting them know you value their perspective. If you are feeling so inclined, share your reflections in the comments section, perhaps a short story of your own experiences or simply a note that you have been in similar shoes. That sense of community fosters hope for everyone reading. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel or platform, please consider doing so. Your support helps circulate more informative content like this, which can be a lifeline for those who are just realizing they might need guidance in supporting an older adult. As we wrap up, remember that the data and suggestions shared here are meant to guide and inform. They do not replace professional assessment or medical consultation. If you suspect that someone is in immediate danger, whether from financial exploitation, health complications, or severe mental distress, contact the relevant authorities or healthcare providers promptly. There is no shame in taking preventative action when the well-being of a loved one is at stake. Geriatric specialists and mental health counselors often have a wealth of experience in identifying and addressing these hidden struggles. Many seniors ultimately find relief once they know resources exist that respect their autonomy while keeping them safe. You might wonder if the day will come when you too will need such supportive measures. It is likely that at some point in our lives, we all will. Understanding these hidden signs now and practicing empathy toward those around us prepares us for a future in which we can embrace help when it is offered to us. Rather than viewing aging as a slow retreat from society, we can see it as a phase of life enriched by relationships, wisdom, and mutual care. Reaching out to those who might be struggling alone is a reflection of our collective responsibility, a testament to the community bonds that unite us across generations. If you are still here, I want to thank you for your attentive presence. Sharing stories of families like Linda's and Harold's exemplifies how important it is to recognize the gentle hints that our elders may be quietly asking for help. If you found any piece of this narrative relatable, please mention it in the comments or simply write, "I'm here to help." Let your fellow readers see that they are not alone in this endeavor. This exchange of experiences can make a world of difference for someone who is hesitating to step in. You never know whose heart you might touch with a few words of compassion. That is the essence of our discussion on these 5 hidden signs. A disorganized home might seem like a matter of housekeeping, yet it can signify deeper fatigue or pain. Forgotten bills could be an early signal of overwhelming stress or cognitive decline. Worsening pain that is never mentioned might be rooted in prideful reluctance to seek care. Sudden avoidance of social events may mask shame or fear of being judged for new limitations. Quiet transformations in mood often point to emotional suffering or even depression. Detecting one or more of these indicators should prompt us to reach out, not with alarmism or pity, but with quiet strength and genuine empathy. Over time, and with small, consistent steps, we can ensure our loved ones do not have to struggle in silence. For many older adults, being heard, truly heard, makes all the difference. By offering steady support, we remind them that their worth is not measured by what they can or cannot do alone, but by who they are and the meaningful relationships they have nurtured over the years. If this resonates, please like the video or share it with someone who might benefit. By doing so, you help spread awareness about the discrete challenges seniors face and encourage more people to look beneath the surface. And if you want to stay updated on further discussions related to geriatric well-being, caregiving strategies, and nurturing the emotional health of our elders, subscribing will ensure you never miss a new posting. I appreciate your time, your compassion, and your willingness to learn more about supporting the older generation among us. Together we can create a culture of attentiveness, one in which hidden struggles are met with open hearts and practical solutions. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. I hope you leave feeling more prepared to watch out for these subtle signals, more empowered to intervene gently, and more inspired to stand by the elders who shaped our communities and our lives. May we all strive to make sure they never have to struggle alone, unseen or unheard, as they move through their twilight years.